Fat Boys, this cannot be overstated, even though I state it most weeks. I love this league because it always comes down to the last couple weeks, and this week did not disappoint. We had two matchups decided under a point, one of them on the last day, and I think a miracle is a downselling it, although I probably am not the person to ramble on. We also had a epic shift in our standings. We're going to see just ties all over the board. No, this is all parity. It is a true NFL league, so I'm going to shut up so we can actually get to the stories of the week. Last week, I did not use the Thanksgiving gimmick pretty much so I could this week. So what am I thankful for? I mean, number one, no stash. You also might be thankful of that. Or if you miss it, travel back in time, watch last week's video and remember what was. But I'm also just thankful that at this point in the NFL season, things start to kind of iron out the way they normally do. The Ravens, who were dominant, are now starting to show that maybe they're not, just to prelude the flop they're probably going to have in the playoffs if the Ravens are going to Raven. Snow games are amazing. We had one last week and we got one again in this particular week. The Bills, building on that one, usually now is the time because they're an awesome cold weather team with awesome cold weather fans. If you need any evidence, do you see how much snow those fans were sitting on late at night? They had already got the game wrapped up and most of them just stayed to grind it out. Awesome fan base. Also, maybe made you some money. If you bet on the underdog on this one, we did have a celebrity and an NFL famous person get engaged, but maybe not the one people had originally bet on. So congratulations to all those Steinfeld and Allen ships there. So congratulations. But also this is the kind of year the time of year that we also start to see some of the pros and maybe some of the cons. Cons are more fun to poke at and try and take a look at. So if you're looking for poor coaching decisions, I mean, you've got Chicago, who I'm not even making fun of because they must be next year the team of destiny. Everything is going wrong for them this year, from like the Hail Mary, mismanagement. That game looked like when you gave someone a Madden controller and they would hit instead of juke or speed burst, they would hit slide. And at the end of the game, they didn't know how to rush to the front and spike the ball or call a quick play. So they just kind of wound the clock out. Las Vegas, some say mismanagement. Some are really bent on this Kansas City potentially Taylor Swift buying out the NFL conspiracy theory, but weirdly enough, not the craziest conspiracy theory going around on the internet right now. But all of these kind of make you think this is the way it typically is around the end of the season. So I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful for my health and hopefully everybody else's health. And if you have a favorite team, be thankful if they're healthy. Last year, we saw the Chiefs and the 49ers play off in a pretty decent Super Bowl. You could make the argument that the 49ers were the best team, maybe, but they were certainly the healthiest. This year, flip the script, completely opposite. I mean, speaking of that snowball, you don't have a Shanahan unless you expect them to Shanahan, but to run a guy with a real questionable leg situation into the ground in CMC, this is pretty crazy, and we can't really trust. I mean, okay, there's a bit of a calf gate going on right now. People saying they saw the snap and the pop, and he did have a bad Achilles or two bad Achilleses, and they're saying knee, but can we trust the 49ers at all anymore? I mean, fantasy owners of CMC, no, he lied at the beginning of the year. They hid the injury, and that's a big deal. But also this year, they're kind of getting the comeuppance. They have so many players. I mean, Williams in their tackle, Ayuk obviously be gone for the season. They've gone through, right now, they're going to have 3 running backs this week on the injured list. Bosa's trying to make his oblique great again, so he's not back yet. Realistically, they've lost their essence, and you would think most people are just going to take a knee, but that's not going to be Shanahan. So if you are healthy, feel good about your health, especially if you're worried about the potential of Medicare, because it looks like Rodgers is on his way out sooner than later. So maybe he joins the cabinet and starts making sure that everyone's healthcare needs are met. I think the last thing I'm obviously thankful for, aside from the fact that I'm trying to wrap this up a little bit early, anyone who's made it this long into the video so far and still paying attention, thank you so much. And as a reward, let's talk a little bit more about our specific fantasy leagues. While I'm doing the week recap, I don't want to keep saying things like, and then we'll see at the scoreboard, and then we'll see at the scoreboard, because there's going to be so much jumble. Look at this. I mean, there's a 1 game difference, and we're difference between third and trying to fight for a top 2 spot, and fighting for a playoff spot. So I will probably say it a few more times, but apologies in advance. To do the math, you need to see the actual standings themselves. Let's just say this was an epic win for Kevin, because obviously, Horst, you needed it. And we know week after week, I say points matter. So having the most points must matter then, right? I mean, Mark, you did go a little over your predicted, and you did have some points that were friendly to you here. You obviously had the tight end 3 in Jonnu Smith, and you did have the defense 5. You didn't really have too many massive tanks. Most people noticed a senior show up in your running back, and now he's running like one. And obviously, Debo didn't do quite as well for you. You also did have some love on the bench, so things could have been a bit different. But realistically, you weren't going to make up the gap. And even Horst, you definitely had a few people on the board here. You had a quarterback 4. You did have the kicker 2, but our kicker 1, the Arizona kicker, nobody had. So you had the best kicker that anyone started. And you did leave a little love on the bench here. Your Dallas defense would have helped you out. Buffalo was no slouch, but Dallas was the defense 3. But realistically, you just didn't have that slouch. Your worst was people hitting predicteds, right? Everybody else went a little bit over, or here, I guess Jefferson pretty much right on, and London a little bit sub, but it doesn't really matter. Everybody put up double digits for you pretty much there, so that's going to help you. And in a league where sometimes you win with 120, you definitely are going to win, or at least be super competitive with 140. So like I said, Horst, you kept your dreams alive. Mark, let's not start counting the chickens too closely here. I know you're in third, but as we're going to see, she's tight. I don't even really want to talk about this one, because I shouldn't have won. As some of you know, I do look ahead and see what percentages are if there's going to be a Monday Night Miracle. I looked at this. Obviously, it was my matchup, and I'm like, not a chance. I think I was actually at 1%. I'm not 100 on that one, and I wish I could turn back time. Maybe you can, but I wrote this one off as an epic loss. And it wasn't until my new routine when I get home is to the night games. I go blank. I don't listen to them. I don't see any updates. I'm glad no one posted in this particular case. And then I watch the games in 40 when I get home. And as it was going, I started doing the math in my head. I'm like, I wonder if I got even close. And then sure enough, when I go in, this is ridiculous. I'm so sorry, Ben. But like, we're looking at decimal points, 0.28, and it's going to hurt as we go down. I'll try to avoid it for as long as I can, but then I got to rip the Band-Aid off. For me, I mean, obviously I can say every decision made it because it was that close. I did have some love, though. Obviously, I mean, running back 6 just on the outside to your running back 5. You see the Dowdle-Cook comparison. So that night game was certainly nice for me. Daniels was the quarterback 3, so that was pretty great. You, though, did fight back with some of your wide receivers, but it was my defense that took it. Heading into it, I had Chubb. I mean, obviously, huge disappointment in having a tight end that scored 0. Anything would have been better than that. But having Chubb, who doesn't always necessarily produce unless he gets in the end zone, and he had a receiving touchdown, which is not his forte, but that was against my defense. I was set up to lose on this one. But then Denver goes ahead and has 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a bunch of sacks. They were obviously the defense one, although no one had the Chargers defense, and that was actually quite close. Here's the part that just isn't great. And I'm sorry, Ben, you know what's coming. Yeah. You could have got some love on that game too, and it would have been all over. In fact, I spent some of the time thinking, wait, he had Judy. No. He's out. He wasn't in. He didn't have anyone left. Yeah, sorry, buddy. And yes, he was the wide receiver 1, and McLovin was the wide receiver 2. So you kind of had your receivers show up for you. I'm not rubbing it in. This one burns. And honestly, Ben, we're going to go through. At least you kept your top 4 spot. Like I said with Mark, nothing is written in the stars yet, but we're going to see what your situation is. And at least with 138, it's going to help with your points scored for sure. Another super important one. How does one get a win, one get a loss, and yet you're both technically right now by decimal points probably in the playoffs? So congratulations, V and Justin. V, you kind of made the point that you are one of the higher scoring teams in the league, and you were a little salty that you're not in the playoffs. So now if you hang on, looks like you're going to be that team that maybe people don't want to play in the playoffs. But let's just kind of run it down. Now, Justin, this was a weird one. You actually did quite fine. I mean, you were pretty much at your predicteds. but you didn't have really anyone go off. No one was in the top 5. You did have Johnson, who at least remembered how to catch this week, so that's a positive. Saquon, who's been the best running back, but against Baltimore's D, didn't really look like it, but we know he's probably going to bounce back next week. And Lamar Jackson was close. I think he was the quarterback 6, but that's not top 5 now, is it? V, you had a couple top scores. You rang the bell twice, one number 1 tight end and number 1 running back. I don't think you were expecting that from Bucky, so had been pretty happy. Although you did make a managerial decision that kind of almost burnt you, with Najee actually being the running back 3, but he was on your pine. So that could have changed things slightly, although it didn't really matter. So like I said, right now you guys are probably just waiting till I get to the standings, but you're going to have to be patient. I got 2 more matchups first. And relax. Currently, you're both in the playoffs. If you're noticing a trend, you're like, wow, 6 and 7. There's a bunch of teams that have that. Yeah, that's why it's going to get real tough to do math in a second here. But speaking of doing math, Jake, you're definitely not really adding up to where you need to be for a top seed. You all pretty much had it. And now your top seed is actually in question. So you can take another week off maybe, though. Don't go too crazy. How it kind of worked out for you is a bit of an underperformance, and actually you did have at least one guy, with Mixon being a huge one for you this year. He was the running back 4, so he didn't really disappoint too much, but everyone else kind of did. McConkey was your lad on that one too. He's been a great pickup, but a lot of your big horses just didn't show up. I guess, though, getting it out of it before the playoffs actually start is probably not the worst thing in the world for you. And then, Waylon, this is you hanging on. I mean, had you lost, you would have been out of it. So even though you're in 9th and it's not looking phenomenal, you still have a chip in a chair. So we'll see what that means in a minute. You had the wide receiver 3 in Evans, the tight end 2 in Yoku. So obviously you were happy with the way the Monday Nighter went. And realistically, just some decent scoring all the way through. 121 is going to be super competitive. But you're going to need another big week, as we're going to see. We got one more matchup to go. Then we're going to see where you are in these standings. On the other scale, whereas Ben and I were going off on scoring, this one was 2 kind of teams struggling to limp through. We head into a Sunday Nighter, not a Monday Nighter, and you would think the fireworks would go off as McCaffrey and Kittle get after it. One gets injured and one just was not productive in the snow, and that had to just been a dagger. If you were watching this one, even on highlights, you were probably just like, well, more, just catch and fall forward. Catch and fall forward, and it just didn't happen for you. 0.9, who would have thought, though, a loss by 0.9, and it was not our closest matchup of the week, so we did have some nail biters. Now, Chaz, you're just kind of the king of spoiler on this one, and what's funny is you didn't really have any top 5 performances to do it. You did have Achane and Murray that did just fine for you, but no one really went off the handle. Be on your side, you actually did have at least a running back 2 in the fight. I am so sorry, Chaz. You had Andrews, who was the tight end 4. Apologies on that. You did have someone ring the top 5. But Bijan was the running back 2. And you had some decent wide receiver help. And you would have thought Baker, but if you saw it, he did get popped and actually left the game for a little bit, just a small bit. But I'm wondering if that impacted things a little bit, especially they went to overtime. You probably were hoping for a garbage touchdown. Now, you did leave the touchdown factory on the bench. All he does is apparently score touchdowns. I get it. It's scary, but you needed a home run in this one, and you just didn't get one. Although, had you started him over Chuba Hubbard, considering how the seasons have gone, that would have been the boldest move of essentially all time. Now, it would have won you, but you would have raised some eyebrows. We're going to see, though, B, it is not all lost. You really could have used that one, but not over for you. Whereas, Chaz, we know you're a spoiler, but why not just keep spoiling then? My theme for the NFL bit was what I'm thankful for, and I guess I'm also thankful for this league and this time of year, because just look at those scores. That is insane. Legitimately every week matters, and I know I said every week, but it doesn't downplay it. Tiebreakers are insane, from 5th to 9th all tied. Now, we are going to see with some matchups, though. Technically, there's only one team that's out of it. You also are the lowest scoring team, Chaz, so you can't be too upset about this one, because even if you win, you would just kind of be in a tie with a few people, but I still think that's bragging rights. Unfortunately, though, I also think Waylon is in a tough spot because he needs at least 2 or 3. Actually, he needs 3 of the teams in front of him to lose to get in. And as we're going to see, that's just not going to happen. This was actually planned pretty well. We do have the 5 and the 8 and the 6 and the 7 getting after it. So unless one of them tie, in which case, John, you could jump up. I think you're kind of stuck here, so you can play for the basement down there and wait for the consolation rounds. In terms of everyone else, this really was an odd bit. This looks like, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. This looks like a semifinal kind of, or a quarterfinal kind of situation. And it kind of is. I mean, Jake and I are in, but we're still fighting for that top spot. So there is a vested interest in us getting that. And even for me, I'm not guaranteed a top 2. Top 2 with a bye, with the league this tight and my team that shaky, that means the world to me. But obviously it would for Mark as well. So this epic battle might decide, or should decide, a week bye and could decide a top seed depending on how things work out. Obviously, Ben wants to be in the fight as well, and Jake wants to cement his number 1 spot, but no one will be fighting harder than our playoff-bound people here. I don't want to go ahead and assume, but I gotta think it's a win and you're in, loser leaves town matchup, both ways of it. So this is a pretty exciting way to finish the year, gents. You can't lie. There you have it. At this stage, I'm just repeating myself over and over again. Epic ties, epic point differential decision making. But the way I think it's going to come down is a win and you're in, or win and you hold. Could we ask for anything better? Why not? The playoffs are so great. Let's just have them start a week earlier. Nothing much left to say. I hope you're able to watch it. I hope you enjoy it. And I guess best of luck, everyone.